So we are going to be making quiche today. This is one of James Martin's recipes. He is my favourite chef, and having seen him make this morning on Saturday morning, his programme this morning, I thought I'd try and make it. And this is something that Year 8s and 9s need to learn how to do. So in here I've got 400 grams of plain flour and 200 grams of butter that I've cut into cubes. What I'm going to do now is carry out the method that we've used before, the rubbing in method. So again, we're using our fingertips to combine, let's crush the butter into the flour. And remember, we're making short crust pastries, so the purpose why we're using the rubbing in method is to give each of those each flour particle a little waterproof coating of butter, hence keeping the gluten strands short. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly rub all this in until it resembles fine breadcrumbs. Okay. So this has pretty much been rubbed in. If I just shake the bowl, I can see that many big lumps come to the top. I'm just going to break the egg into a container first, just in case some eggshell drops in. No, we're fine. So I'm just going to add that to there. I'm just going to use a knife just to cut through it to combine. Now I've used a large egg. If you've got a medium egg at home, you might need to add some water. I mean, I'm going to see if the consistency of this, I might need to add some more water to it. Now before I didn't use an egg when I demonstrated making pastry before, but this one actually, obviously by adding egg, you've enriched the dough. Right, it's sort of coming together. I'm just going to get some water just to add a little bit to it. I always tend to not add enough water and it ends up being quite cracked and too short. So I'm learning from my mistakes. Just a little bit more in there. If you were to use a machine, I probably would normally use a machine if I'm just making at home, but obviously in school we don't have 25-30 machines to make, but if I was making paper, I would use my machine just to quickly bring it together as a dough. Just a little bit more in there. Okay, and you then know it's ready because it comes together as one big dough, and you should be able to bring it together so that the bowl will then be clean. So just a few more dry bits there that will pick it up. It's looking quite good. Okay, I'm now going to get my hands in. I can then feel the consistency. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so it. Now I don't want to treat it like a bread dough. I'm not going to knead it. Lovely. Right. So just scrape up the dry pieces. Big lump of dough here, bigger than we made before. There we go. So if I just bring this together, lovely. So I'm then going to put that in the fridge for half an hour to rest and to cool. And wrap it in cling film. And I'll have a bit of a tidy up as well, because that's really important. Let's keep our workstation tidy. I made a mess of that. Start that one again. That's better. Horrible stuff, cling film. There we go, wrapped it back in the fridge for half an hour. Okay, so I'm just going to cut the dough into smaller parts and put the rest back in the fridge. So I have greased my muffin tin. So James made it his in a very large springform tin like this. However, again, we don't have that bigger containers in class, so that's why I thought we'd make some smaller ones. Now these are going to be a little more fiddly than the larger ones, so we just need to persevere and work with it. So I'm going to take a bit at a time, keep rotating the pastry round. There's a few cracked in places, but short crust, it's fine. I should be able to get about 3 out of each of my pieces. So I want them to be thin enough to be able to hold the liquid in the tins, but not too thin to have holes. Okay, so I've got my largest cutter, which is obviously my biggest one, which is the bigger than the holes. I'm not going to use the serrated side, I'm going to use the flat side. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, carefully use a fish slice. And then being careful not to rip or tear, I'm going to lift the edges and just let it fall inside, and then place my thumbs in and then work my way up the side. There's 1. 2. So curl the edges, let it fall inside, and push it back out. So I'm going to do that with each of the other pieces of pastry I've got in my fridge. So the last couple, I've got a bit of pastry left over, so we'll see, I might be able to make some more than 12. Now I can't put the mixture into this yet, we need to do what's called baking blind. So the pastry needs, baking blind just means we need to partly cook it. So the great thing about using muffin tins is normally if you're making a quiche you would put perhaps baking parchment down and then baking beans. James used flour to weight it down, but I've got some rice. So I'm just going to place these muffin cases into each of them and then pour a bit of rice into each, just to weigh it down, just so the pastry can begin to cook. So I'm going to do that with each of them. Okay, so that's all the cases lined. I had a bit of a eureka moment. As I placed the paper cases in, I used my thumb just to push down at the pastry, just to ease it up the sides a little bit, and that prevented my thumb from piercing the pastry. So that's done. I'm just going to bake that blind for about 10 minutes until it partly cooks. I've already preheated the oven to 160 degrees, so I'll just put that on for 10 minutes and we'll go from there. And I'll now make the filling. So I've already chopped an onion, diced an onion I have to say. I'm just sauteing it in a frying pan with a bit of oil and a bit of butter, just to cook slightly. I'll just leave that to the side, and then I'm going to start on the mixture. So I'm going to start with four whole eggs. I've used quite a lot of eggs in here, so 4 eggs. And then 4 egg yolks. So remember, there are 2 ways of doing this, either using your hand as like a sieve or using half the eggshells to get rid of the white, backwards and forwards. I prefer to use the hand. A bit messier, but you can wash your hands afterwards, so it's a lot quicker. Okay, I'm now going to wash my hands. Okay, so get rid of that. Okay, I'm just going to beat this for a little bit. Okay, to this we're actually then going to add the creamy mixture. So I'm going to add 200 millilitres of milk and the same quantity cream. There's 300 in here, so I'm not going to go overboard. So 200 of cream. Give that a whisk. And usual thing, season to taste. Okay. And that's now made like an eggy custard, like a creamy custard. Okay, I'm just going to then get the pastry out to roll that out. So they're just ready. Just gonna, whoops, stuck to the pastry. Just gonna remove these. So I'm then gonna put them back in the oven for a few minutes, just to crisp up a little bit. So you can see the pastry has started to cook. Not too bad. Once the rice is cooled, you can then reuse it again, or just keep it just as baking rice. Like I said, you can use baking beans if you've got them, if not, just flour. So I'm going to put them back in the oven for a couple of minutes, just to crispen off a little bit and maybe brown just slightly. Okay, so just for a few minutes. So I had a couple of minutes back in the oven, just to brown a little bit, that's fine. So what I'm now going to do is I've got some filling. I'm now going to put in the base. I've already sauteed off the onion. So I'm going to put a little bit of onion in the bottom of each. Cooked onion. Divide that between the 12. Okay. Now, James used, in his recipe, he used streaky bacon, or bacon that he'd pre-cooked. I've just got some ham. I've just pre-cut some ham. I'm just going to place in each. Okay, I'm then going to use a ladle, carefully, I don't know how messy this is going to get, to put the creamy eggy mixture, milky egg mixture in each of them. There's enough mixture probably to make another 12, and I had some pastry left over, so what I'll do is I'll once this batch are in the oven, I'll make some more and I'll see how much we can make with the recipe, with James' recipe. Okay, so then I've got some grated cheese. Just going to place the cheese, a mound of cheese on top. Okay, and then on top of each one, perfect size for a tomato. Now, this mixture obviously made one large quiche, and that would take about 30 to 40 minutes, James suggested, in the oven. But because obviously these are smaller, I'm going to probably put them in for half an hour, but check them after 20 minutes to see how well they're doing. So we increase the temperature just slightly to 180. So half an hour, we'll see how they are. If you decide to make a larger quiche, so what I've done with all the offcuts of pastry I had from my mini ones, I've just rolled out the pastry. It's a little bit cracked because obviously it's dried out, but what I've done, I've rolled it out. Now this isn't the best part of the pastry because obviously I've just said it's the offcuts. What you do is roll it out to the thickness you want. Be careful, so just wrap the pastry over the top of the rolling pin and maneuver it. Layer it over the tin. And then be careful not to, I've already got a little hole here, but I'm going to patch that up. Just lift the edges like you did before with the smaller ones, so that it sort of collapses inside. And I'm just going to use my thumbs. I'm just going to just push that together. The butter will bring it together to the corners. Okay. And then do just as I did before, bake it blind. For this time, I'm going to use all of these. Perfect. So I'll just use the rice I used before inside. Bake it blind. You'll notice I haven't trimmed the edges, just in case the pastry shrinks, then I'll trim it at the end. Just push it down to the corners, just to give it a little bit of weight. That'll do. And then I'll bake it blind for about 10-15 minutes. So they've had their sort of 20 to 30 minutes. I've kept an eye on them. So I'm just going to carefully prise one out. It's got a nice, still a little bit soft, and underneath the pastry is done. So I'm pleased with them. So I'm just going to carefully lift them out onto the cooling rack. The pastry hasn't shrunk, which is good. So I did as James said and didn't overwork the pastry. And they can be perfect for a snack or lunch or a picnic or a party, just mini quiches that you can put in different ingredients into a quiche. You can even try and flavour your pastry with some herbs or some spices, just to change the recipe slightly. Nice one. There you go, my mini quiches.